My name is Jamila Joseph. I'm a graduate of Eugene Lang College. Welcome here. Thank you so much for joining us. Joining me is also Morris Yankel, who is also on the Alumni Association board, and we will be your MCs for this evening. It is my pleasure to introduce President David Van Zandt. To kick things off, he's going to be the first one to join us and give us a 60-minute or 60-second lecture. You owe me for that one. I saved you. President Van Zandt is a sociologist, attorney, and higher education visionary who has brought a spirit of collaboration to the New School University that has made today's event possible. Please join me in welcoming our president.
Well, welcome everyone, and thank you. I hope that 60-minute slip does not hold a bit true, but we're really happy to welcome all of you back to the New School. This is a really exciting time for the New School right now. There are many new initiatives underway, tremendous improvements around the entire university, and if you've noticed, up on 14th and 5th Street, there's a building there that will shortly open, and after years, I think there's a lot of excitement among the faculty, among the students and staff to get into that building and really get going. So I hope you've been able to take advantage of a couple of the events around here today, the various tours, the other events that are going on, and taking a chance to get back and see your school, as well as connect with professor, staff, and others here, and finally to connect with each other and your classmates and your friends from here. We hope you'll stay engaged with the New School going forward. We're making every effort to try to help you to do that, and we hope you take advantage of that. Well, okay, let's get to the exciting part of the program, which is this is the first time we're going to try this. It's called a New School Minute. It consists of 60-second speeches in which about 20 of our faculty members and deans from varied disciplines and backgrounds will share with you, again in 60 seconds, of course, a snapshot of a research interest, a special project, or simply whatever work or initiative they'd like to share with you right now. Now, I'm going to kick things off, and I'm going to give a New School minute of my own, focused on some of the changes I've alluded to already. But what I want to do is first be sure I have in front of me the stopwatch, because as president, I need to set an example for the rest of the faculty, the deans, so that they stick to this. They stick to this timeline. See, I really do have it there. See, 60 minutes. Okay. My 60 minutes. Start. Okay. Well, the New School, as you know, is really dedicated to preparing our students to succeed in what's becoming an increasingly creative economy out there. The world changes, we're adjusting to it. And we're guided by our core principles of being attached to creativity, innovation, and challenging the status quo, as well as being socially engaged, working with the world around us, whether educationally or afterwards, in order to improve it and improve people's lives in it. We're trying to make it easier right now for students to take courses across the entire curriculum and programs here, and promoting interdisciplinary faculty work. In addition, we'll be moving the Fashion School of Parsons as well as the Manus School downtown over the next couple of years. And finally, we are converging in the University Center, as I mentioned. It will be about 350,000 square feet of space, new space on our campus. But it's a place that will serve all programs and all students and all faculty. It's not dedicated to any particular school or division or program. It's for everyone. It also has no offices, really. It's almost all classrooms, studios, labs, common spaces. Most important, it's a place for people to get together and interact. There are large spaces where students can interact with faculty and staff throughout the building. So we see the University Center not just as a new physical facility, but it's a place where the entire New School, for the first time probably in 60 years, will have a place where it can all converge together and be one school. Thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon. Morris Yankel. Class of 1986, Human Resources, Master's degree. First, I'd like to introduce, and they give me the hardest one first, I think, Elzbieta Matinya, Associate Professor of Sociology, whose lecture is titled, Some Alumni You Should Meet, Unseen Alumni with Indelible Memories.
This was 1990. The very end of the Cold War, when the New School launched a project called Trans-Regional Center for Democratic Studies, in which, in the tradition of academic excellence and also generosity towards the larger world, we were to go and explore the world, which we were not able to explore before, Eastern Central Europe, and then soon afterwards, after the dissolution of apartheid South Africa. So I want you to see what we are doing, because those things are not seen from this campus. And what we are doing here, it's obvious. There are research, there are conferences, but we do have two campuses abroad, overseas, one in Poland and one in South Africa, in which students from the region, 30 countries altogether, study with our people here from the New School, from all divisions of the New School, from all divisions of the New School. Okay, that's Johannesburg. That was our last institute we just came from. Because I wanted to meet these people, because those are the people, as I said, who are our people but are not here. And they are quite extraordinary. And there is a huge evidence of the enormous attachment to the New School. And you should know that. You cannot know them because they are not here, and they've never been to the New School. But they are running right now, it's 1,700 of them. Already over years, they are running major publishing houses, they teach at great universities, they represent their countries in the Parliament of European Union, they run foundations in Sub-Saharan Africa. They're great, and they adore us. And I think that they constitute one of the most precious, along with you, social capitals of this university. And we should know about them. You should know about them, because just as the program was launched with the hope that we can change the world for the better, we still hope that we can change the world with the better. Thank you very much.
Please join me in welcoming Pippin Parker, who is director of the New School for Drama.
Thank you, and it's nice to share the stage with my colleague Elzbieta, who works in sometimes in the similar range and area that I do. I'm the director of the New School for Drama. Drama is a curious thing. If everyone told the truth, if all people told the truth all the time, there would probably be no need for drama. It may never, in fact, have been invented. Nor tragedy, exactly. But people lie. And by people, I mean me. But also you. And we are mean to people we love, and we are kind to people we hate. And we feel too much when we shouldn't, and not enough when we should. And what comes out of our mouths isn't always what's in our head. And what's in our head isn't always what's in our heart. And what's in our heart is suspect, painful, glorious, humiliating, and may or may not be true anyway. Because we know no matter how hard we try, we can only live our lives forward, because we have the sense that somewhere inside us there's another better version, because we want a second chance, because we blow our second chances, because we talk too long, drink too much, desire too easily, love too hard, because people leave, because we leave people, because we are pinballed, dizzy, ricocheting off shiny steel tines inside someone else's machine, nonetheless trying to stay in motion if the only other choice is game over. Because there is no reliable refuge, not science, with all due respect to my colleagues, there is no reliable refuge, not science, nor sports, nor religion, nor poetry, pornography, photography, Pilates, gardening, trips abroad, evenings at home, fireworks from the roof. There is no permanently safe distraction to save us except maybe each other in a moment of truth, because there are only questions, because everything worthwhile is a paradox, because action is motion and motion is life, because rituals are broken, because darkness, because alone, because a light, briefly, a light. Thank you.
Judy Mejia, Director of Civic Engagement and Social Justice, whose lecture is titled Sociology in the City.
Thank you. I invite you to join my class. Sit back and listen, reflect on the photo that you see here, and I'll share a little bit with you. I asked her if she liked having a big family, and she said, yeah, with a big smile on her face. If you ever get into trouble, you always have someone to help you. It's important for people to understand that although these kids are at risk, they have things that matter: family, friends, happiness. Isa Wong. After bringing up the article on NYPD's stop and frisk policy, the conversation began to roll, and overwhelming anger and sadness consumed me. After Gary clarified for others what stop and frisk is and asked if they had ever been subject to it, over 5 hands went up. Paulette Shubin. Coney Island as a whole is still feeling the impact of Hurricane Sandy, more than 6 weeks later. The Surfside Garden Community Center that I was assigned to as a mentor is closed for the foreseeable future. The center serves 6 to 7 public housing buildings in the area. Alex Rowe. Welcome to Youth Mentoring in the City, a community-based sociology course where students mentor twice a week at NYCHA community centers across the city. And what you heard were the voices of my students. The image behind me represents the pedagogy of reflection, a practice I use to engage my students in critical understandings of race, class, and gender. Thank you.
And up next, we have Alec Gershberg, who is the Associate Professor of Urban Policy, and his lecture is titled The Aims of Education.
All right. The aims of education, what are they? And do they jibe with the aims of our education systems that provide schooling for our children? Philosopher and co-founder John Dewey, co-founder of the New School, told us that learning is rooted in experience and that knowledge derives from a process of inquiry and problem-solving situations. Dewey's contemporary, Alfred North Whitehead, told us that there is only one subject for education, life in all its manifestations. So learning is experiential, and one imagines that equal access to such experiences would be an important right. W.E.B. Du Bois told us 5 years before the Brown versus Board of Education decision that education is the most fundamental civil right and that the freedom to learn has been bought by bitter sacrifice, which is why most people are surprised to learn that the word education does not appear in the U.S. Constitution or the Bill of Rights, and that Supreme Court Justice Lewis Powell told us 20 years after Brown, in fact, that education is, of course, not among the rights afforded explicit or even implicit protection under our federal Constitution. Indeed, the aims of education are quite different from the aims of any given education system. Education systems largely preserve social order, while true education is often subversive. As Paulo Freire said, education can be an instrument of oppression or liberation, and Dewey told us that without equal opportunities, the influences which educate some into masters educate others into slaves. Or as my colleague at Stanford, Martin Carnoy, put it, education systems create human capital, but they also socialize the young to accept their place in society. I don't have all the answers, and if I did, I'd need more than a minute or frankly 2 minutes to give them to you, but I leave you with this. The most important aim of education is to help individuals think critically so that both individually and collectively they can foster happiness and lead just lives that will help move our societies and cultures in the right direction, help unify the aims of education with the aims of our education systems to preserve order amid change while progressing towards social justice. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hugh Raffles, Professor of Anthropology, whose lecture is titled Stone.
Hi, good afternoon, thank you. I'm writing a book about stone, actually, hence the title, and this is the 60-second version. We found the stone on a beach in Oregon. It was heavy and felt good in the hand. It had been worked by the Pacific, but it wasn't smooth like the others. A small black and white dog scampered up, barking wildly. We threw the stone, but he brought it back, dropping it at our feet. We threw it again. He barreled after it. We went on like this until the tide turned. The fog rolled in, and the dog dissolved into the grey. When the stone is wet, it has a dull sheen. When the right light hits it, it glows from within. Its mantle is pockmarked with battles. Its black nose and descending vein make a face, more like a rabbit than a dog, but enough like a dog, albeit a sad, introspective, blind dog. Not at all like that dog, but enough like a dog to take us back to Oregon. What can a stone do? It can kill, it can heal, it can endure, it can change, it can make us rich, it can make us poor, it can be an enemy, a friend, and a teacher. It can build empires and bury cities. It can reveal the history of the universe. It can change the course of nature, it can change its own nature. It can lie in wait on the beach, and it can fill your dreams, hold your memories, and provide enough material for quite a long book. Thank you.
Up next is Cecilia Rubino, who is the assistant professor of theater, and her lecture is titled The Uprising, the Fire, and the Shirt on Your Back.
So I'm going to leave off the uprising, but the paper today, the New York Times lead article about a building collapse in Bangladesh, puts the figure, the death toll, at 1,054. The human cost, the high cost of the clothes on our back, is at the essence of the Triangle Shirtwaist story, which when I first began creating a piece with the wonderful composer Liz Swados, I never expected that it would have so many drafts or iterations, or that it would be so hauntingly important. Getting off a Western soapbox, we hope in the next version of this piece to contribute to the public conversation about workers, garment workers, and our clothing industry. I'm showing you a short clip. It's based on a speech by the astonishing labor leader Rose Schneiderman in her response to the Triangle Fire.
There are so many of us, for one job it matters little if 146 of us are burned to death. But every time the workers come out in the only way they know to protest against conditions which are unbearable, the strong hand of the law is allowed to press down heavily upon us. Public officials have only words of warning to us. The strong hand of the law beats us back when we rise. The conditions that make life unbearable. I can't talk fellowship to you who have gathered here. Too much blood has been spilled. Too much blood has been spilled.
Jose de Jesus Zamora, Assistant Professor of Fine Arts, whose lecture is titled Perceptual Methods and the Sensory Motor Apparatus.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm very honored to be presenting. My presentation is the teaser of a project that I have been collaborating with other faculty members at Parsons. Brian McGrath, Jean Gardner, Victoria Marshall, and Alayo Bradshaw. And I would like to just play the video and warn you that I have a typo in this that I just found out about, and perceptual, obviously. Okay, so these are 3 small videos that show the 3 apparatus that resulted from this collaboration. The first one is based on the film director Ozu, which is on the upper left. His machine, the machine that I prepared for that, is based on a sitting on the floor situation at 90 degrees with a space. The second one up on the right is a Goddard machine, which is based on mechanical motions of panning, tilting, and tracking. The third one is based on Cassavetes, which is a handheld camera process. In other words, this is a merging of cinematography and traditional drawing methods. And what we have attempted is to bring drawing to a level of perception that speaks to time and to methods that are more appropriate for contemporary perception now that we are so exposed to media, moving images, and so it keeps drawing alive, and it keeps it as a tool for perception in contemporary world. So this is in a nutshell a little teaser of my work. Thank you very much.
Up next is Anwar Sheikh, professor of economics, whose lecture is titled A Global Crisis Yet Again.
Thank you. This is a part of the end of a book which I'm writing, and I want to start off by saying that the general economic crisis which was unleashed across the world in 2007 is a Great Depression once again. The mortgage crisis in the US was a trigger, but not the cause of it, because this crisis is part of a recurrent pattern of long booms and slowdowns in which the transition from the boom to the slowdown means a transition from a robust economy to a fragile one, and in the fragile one, something can trigger a crisis. So we have, for instance, the crisis of 1815 to 1825, which is the first real industrial crisis. The great economist of that time, David Ricardo, thought that everything would bounce back within a year, and he was continuously wrong for the next 10 years, and so of course he's one of the great economists in our pantheon. The crisis of the late 1840s sparked revolutions and rebellions across the world, and two young men by the name of Karl Marx and Frederick Engels were out there fighting in the streets, and later on wrote a couple of influential books which had changed the vision of capitalism. The so-called Long Depression of 1873 to 1893 was triggered by the Austrian stock market crash, and this gave rise to an orgy of anti-Semitic outbursts which greatly changed the self-perception of a young man by the name of Sigmund Freud, who was about to enter university at that time. The Great Depression of the 1930s was triggered by a stock market crash in 1929, and some say that this is the beginning of a new way of social policy across the advanced world, but other people, if you read David Stockman's book recently, say this is the beginning of the end, and the end is near. The great stagflation of 1968 to 1980 was full of bank failures, business failures, high unemployment, and high inflation, and gave rise to the neoliberal policies that we have today. And now we have the great global crisis that began in 2007, was triggered by a mortgage crisis, but as I've argued, not caused by it. It spread rapidly to the globe. We're concerned right now with what to do about the current crisis. But one important first step, in my opinion, is to recognize that this is not a matter of a sudden, unexpected event. This is not a black swan. This is, in fact, a recurrent pattern. The trouble is that those who fail to read history condemn the rest of us to repeat it. And that has something that has to be stopped. And I want to end by saying that what's so special about the New School community is that it has a respect for history, a respect for a critical perspective on past and present ideas, and a determination to be involved in shaping the future. So I welcome you back. Thank you.
Next up is Christopher Goranson, director of the Parsons Institute for Informational Mapping, whose lecture is titled, Where I've Been is Who I Am.
All right, so it turns out that using just your cell phone, which everyone has here, and a simple application, you can actually tell a lot about yourself, or in this case, me. Over just a couple of weeks, you can build a geographic footprint. This is where I work. This is where I live. And this is what it looks like over just the past few weeks. I'm a creature of habit, apparently. If I take the same data, do a little analysis on it, create a heat map, and extrude it to 3 dimensions, I get this. Now, with just a couple weeks, I figured out, of course I knew this, but I could do this with someone else's data, where I live, where I work, where I might go to worship, where I go to the gym, my favorite bars, anything else. And this is just with geography. So the question that I pose to all of you is, who owns your geography? Who owns your geographic footprint? That's one of the questions that we're trying to answer at PIM in the New School.
it is my pleasure to invite the Dean of Eugene Lang College, Stephanie Browner, up to give her presentation, New York City Poems in a New York Minute. We will hear excerpts from Walt Whitman, Langston Hughes, Galloway Cannell, and Nikki Giovanni.
I was asking for something specific and perfect for my city, whereupon lo, upsprang the Aboriginal name, a word liquid, sane, unruly, musical, self-sufficient for an island 16 miles long. Good morning, Daddy. I was born here, he said. Watched Harlem grow. Out of Penn Station, dark tenth of a nation. Planes from Puerto Rico and holds of boats, Chico. Up from Cuba, Haiti, Jamaica, and buses marked New York, from Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, to Harlem, Brooklyn, the Bronx. On the shores, past the Navy Yard, under the Williamsburg Bridge, the Jamaica local crawls in white-winged gulls flat. A boy swings his legs from the pier, whose days go by. A man stands on the pier. He has long since stopped, wishing his heart were full. Oh, river of tomorrow, flowing, we stand on the shores. Maybe some fall evening, when the taxis have passed you by, and that light sort of rain that occasionally falls in New York begins, you'll take a thought and laugh aloud. The notes carrying all the way over to me, and we'll run again, together, toward each other. Yes?
Martin Mueller, Executive Director of the New School for Jazz and Contemporary Music, whose lecture is titled Music and Technological Change, Everything Gets a Little Easier and a Little Less Real.
Thank you. 100 years of recording technology has increasingly changed the way we listen to, perform, and compose music. From records on the phonograph all the way to digital sound, technology has made music ever more accessible, portable, and saleable. Listening to music is now part of our connected culture, a 24/7, anywhere, anytime proposition. But even as technology has made music more accessible and cheaper, music has also been made less sacred. Unfettered access through an earbud culture has diluted the very act of listening, sound fidelity sacrificed for convenience, loudness more important than clarity. Listening is now the backtrack ambience of a modern, cacophonous world. But technology is neither devil nor God. It is, it is the relationship between technology and its users that determines impact. The value of any tool depends ultimately on the user. We must avoid letting the listening experience become a pixelated version of the oral world. We must remind the true value of listening, a focused, aesthetic engagement with sound, and listening as a discipline of focus, musical memory, and conscious habit of the listening mind. In a new musical listening paradigm, the world becomes once again a mysterious, wondrous place of personal meaning, discovery, and experience. Thanks.
Next is Dominic PETMAN, who is Professor of Culture and Media, and his lecture is titled Love and Other Technologies.
Trying to fit a professor into 60 seconds is a bit like trying to fit the Niagara Falls into a whiskey tumbler. But well, that's an Arthur C. Clarke joke. Okay. Love is a technology. Indeed, it is one of our most essential technologies. Love is both an operating system for society at large and a highly complex communication system. Love, after all, is something we make. The love poem and the seductive meal are inherently technological. Love has been described as the codification of intimacy, by a German, of course, meaning that we could never fall in love or express to others unless we shared the same protocols. Love is about sorting signals from noise. As with cybernetics, we crave the feedback loop of the beloved in many forms. This is why, from a certain perspective, all sex is cybersex. In Plato's famous story of the divided hermaphrodite, it is Hephaestus, the god of technology, who fuses them back together with his prosthetic instruments. So it was there from the beginning. Another German, Martin Heidegger, described modern technology as, quote, an unreasonable demand of nature, which is also, I would submit, one of the best definitions available for modern love. He also argued that we only recognize a technology like the hammer as a being in its own right when it is broken. We might say the same for the heart. To this, I would add that if love is blind, then sex is braille. Thank you.
Pamela KLEIN, Associate Dean for Student Affairs at Parsons, whose lecture is titled The Physical Experience of Color.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. We humans have a self-regulating system in our bodies. That's why losing weight is so hard. Our bodies are always adjusting to keep us from starving. Within our visual systems, we also have mechanisms. To explain what I mean, let me ask you a question. Did you ever have the experience of being in an office, probably a dentist's office, and you see a crooked painting on the wall? How many of you either think about straightening it or actually straighten it? Why do we have this urge? Because we live in a gravitational field, and if we're crooked, we might fall down. We humans like to feel in balance or harmony. We like physical comfort. The same is true when we experience color. Our physical receptors in our eye are red, blue, and green. To keep us in balance, we have a physical need to stimulate all of these receptors. But it's only when we are in control of our color choices that we become aware of this. When we say, something's missing, or it doesn't feel right. We are feeling that need. When we fix it, the experience becomes physically satisfying, and we're in balance. Thank you.
Anthony Whitfield, Associate Dean for Civic Engagement at Parsons, whose lecture is entitled Making a Home in a Pansy Patch.
Thank you. And I'm going to try to keep this as close to a minute as possible, although I've been told it's almost impossible for me to do that. In 1975, Al Pacino was nominated for an Academy Award for his role as the real-life bank robber John Wojcik in Sidney Lumet's Dog Day Afternoon. As you learn in the film, the reason behind Wojcik's botched bank heist is his desire to finance his male wife's gender reassignment. This story is the backdrop to a three-part project I am currently pursuing, one I refer to as the Pansy Patch Project. In 2002, I was a resident of a neighborhood in central Brooklyn that was about to undergo major upheaval as the result of the highly contested redevelopment of the Atlantic Terminal. I lived about 2 blocks from what was to become the Barclays Center. There was a lot of press about the project, and one piece in particular caught my attention. It was titled Beyond Pansy Patch. It revealed the history of the neighborhood that I had not known, despite the fact that I was queer and recognized the presence and relative comfort of the neighborhood for queer people. The story stuck in my mind. I was and it as follows. By the late 60s, the story was as follows. By the late 60s, the block between 3rd and 4th Avenue on Dean Street in Brooklyn's Boerum Hill had become the home of a community of gay men, many of whom had lived in rooming houses and communes, were young, working class, and active in New York City's layered gay community. To define the community and beautify the rundown gathering of wooden townhouses, one of the building owners had hired a young man who served as the neighborhood's gardener, tending to small yards in front of their homes. The gardener embraced the task and planted pansies throughout this string of gardens. In short order, the area became known as Pansy Patch to the inhabitants and the surrounding community and the local bureaucracy, including the police. Among the neighborhood's most famous occupants was Ernest Aaron, later known as Liz Debbie Eden, the transsexual partner of John Wojcik. Like many in the neighborhood, Liz died of AIDS in the late 80s. The role AIDS plays in Pansy Patch is critical to note, for it catalyzed the process of gentrification in the neighborhood by causing real estate to change hands far more quickly than it might have. This block-long enclave was also the home of Sarah J. Hale High School, one that was known for low achievement and whose most famous alumna was Lil Kim. Waves of gentrification followed. The Sarah J. Hale High School became the Brooklyn High School for the Arts. And what continued to hold for me was that story. And what began to surface through the process of thinking about that story were several issues. One, what does it mean to call a neighborhood a queer neighborhood? How do gay people actually contribute to the obsolescence of that neighborhood? And really, at the bottom of all of that, what does it mean to have a home? Out of that has developed a project that I'm calling as a whole the Pansy Patch Project, but it divides into 3 parts. The first 2 will happen in a project sponsored this summer by the Pop-Up Museum for Queer History in a show called Homo Economics, the LGBTQ histories of the Brooklyn waterfront. The first part is, and I'm going to be working on this project with alums, so I thought I would talk about this. Actually, they'll all be graduating now and alums in a couple of weeks. The first, they include Bridget Sheeran, Christopher Patton, and Christopher Kelsch. The first part of the project is what we're calling the Kitchen Table Talks, a series of intimate afternoon-long discussions among intergenerational groups of lesbian and gay people, focused on the notion of home and what that means to them and has meant over history. These talks will take place in the homes of queer people who are living in Brooklyn. They'll also be sponsored, by the Griot Circle, an organization that's made up of Black and Latino, for the most part, seniors, gay seniors. The second part of the project is what we're calling the Queer Home Summit, an afternoon-long workshop to be conducted on the Brooklyn Bridge Park in early September, focused on the production of a manifesto of the rights of queer people to have a safe, healthy home life. Through a series of small talks and discussions facilitated by Chris Patton, who developed an entire methodology around contentious arguments, we'll develop this manifesto, which will then be disseminated in broadsides and ultimately in a short, yes, I know, in a short book that can be distributed. The third part will actually be the Pansy Patch Project, which will go back to the neighborhood of Lil Kim and of John Wojcik's lover, and reinstall those pansies and recreate a way of engendering thoughts about what that neighborhood had been, what it meant for queer people, and what it meant to actually find a home.
So we now have Todd Reynolds, lecturer at Man's College, the New School for Music, whose lecture is titled Power and Relevance, the Citizen Artist.
Good afternoon and welcome. I just ran in from a rehearsal. My name is Todd Reynolds. I am a classical violinist gone horribly wrong, or right, depending upon your viewpoint, and I teach at Mannes College at the New School. Mannes has long been known as one of the foremost musical conservatories in the Northeast, and has a wonderful reputation for producing wonderful, virtuosic classical musicians. We've also been known as one of the more traditional conservatories of the nation. And as a conservatory, where I went to Eastman myself up in Rochester, we study the classical masterpieces. That is part of our training. That is how we train our young musicians, by examining those celebrated masterpieces of the past. And that training will always remain. That is how you get a violinist to be a violinist. That's how you get a trombonist to be a trombonist. Don't ask me why I said trombone. But that is how you make great musicians, by studying some of those classical masterpieces. However, everything has changed. And the economy has changed. The musical landscape has changed. Pop music has changed. Jazz and rhythm and blues have changed us. And these days, we need to take a look at how we are equipping our young musicians past the classical studies that we give them. So at Mannes at the New School, these days we are asking further questions, the foundation of which are, number one, in a changing social economy, what is the extended value of a trained musician? In an evolving technological landscape, how current is our curriculum with regard to music making? How do we send our students out into the world equipped with a skill set which makes them brilliant entrepreneurs, technologically savvy, and ready to negotiate and problem solve inside their own careers, whatever those careers might look like, contributing to the society, whether they become professional musicians or eventually end up in the corporate world as lawyers, doctors, salesmen. To those steeped in our tradition, this can sometimes seem like heresy, because what person enters conservatory and doesn't come out as Yo-Yo Ma? But that just doesn't happen. So in this real world economy, one might not realize that ad agencies, corporate entities are looking for creatives these days, not only for people who've gone through business school. As the times have changed and the economy has changed, we are therefore asking questions which lead us to providing even greater societal relevance for our students, evoking them to be citizen artists, musicians who enter the present-day post-college life bringing to bear their artistry, their passion, their talents, their brilliance as creatives, no matter what path they may choose, music or not, impacting their world in a way that only they can. Thank you so much.
We now have Nina Kroschev, Associate Professor of International Affairs, whose lecture is titled "The Medium is the Message."
So, the medium and the message, or be careful what you wish for. I'm Nina Kroschev. I'm here for Stephen Colbert at the Colbert Report. Stephen is very busy and we're trying new things. The New School is hosting the New York Minute, an anomaly, as we are in long-winded academia, reflecting the New School building. It has taken forever. But in downtown Manhattan, where a poor cousin of the well-funded, picturesque Ivory Tower and can't afford being long-winded. Here, if you are not quick enough, there is a danger of being screamed at or worse, confronted by police. And indeed, very New York-like, in defying logic, we got occupied for actually being 99%. Like Joe Biden, we do hear all sides. And then, speaking bluntly, like it is, John Galliano knows. Oddly, we don't always end up with a foot in our mouth or a finger in our eye. Galliano has bailed out to avoid John McCain's debacle. It's rumored McCain thought that the New School heckling in '06 was worse than losing the US presidency in '08. Proudly, the New School, like most New Yorkers, assisted in that defeat, though one cannot discard Dick Cheney's input. he always ends up on the loser side. In my report, I was asked to talk about what's happening in my classroom. Clearly, I engage in subversive propaganda, but recently have begun working on a book called Dictatorship. And dick is the word. Thank you.
Michelle Kahana, professor of professional practice, whose lecture is titled New Challenge, Taking Student Ideas from the Classroom to the Real World.
Hello. I don't think I need to tell you alumni how incredible New School students are, but I will. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a new, something called the New Challenge, which is a university-wide ideas competition that was launched last year. It really focuses on supporting student ideas and helping them take them to the next level. It gives them money, up to $10,000 in awards, mentorship, and many, many workshops. And actually, next year, we're going to be launching a boot camp to really support these students. So this is not moving. Now it is. Thank you. So I want to tell you a little bit about these students because they are really incredible. They come from across the university, Parsons, NSPE, Lang, and we're looking forward to drama and music as well, and others. They're from many, many different programs: graduate program in international affairs, nonprofit management, Lang educational studies, international affairs, urban ecology, urban policy, nonprofit management, and more. So here are a few examples. Leon Tran from Design and Technology has created a game working with a group of immigrant lawyers to help unaccompanied youth who find themselves in the court system not knowing their legal rights. Nora Rahimian from the Graduate Program in International Affairs is working in Liberia to develop a program to assist youth to re-enter society. Christina Handel and Marco Zelaya are working in Honduras and have developed and designed an infrastructure to harvest clean water to help women who are roadside vendors improve their income. And Drive Change is a food truck business that is being started by Annie Bickerton and Jordan Lexton that is meant to help incarcerated youth find jobs and also to advocate for a change in the age from 16 to 18 for adult criminal responsibility. And finally, Matthew Wilsey from Design and Technology, again, is working on developing a digital platform for biking data as a civic engagement and policy tool. So the New Challenge has become more than a prize or a competition. It's becoming, in its second year, an ecosystem of support where student ideas and students are at the center, and around it are supported by diverse resources from across the university, whether in terms of mentorship, courses, money, alumni, networks, in all forms. We are very excited about the evolution of this ecosystem. 200 students applied this past year, and 120 faculty, administrators, and alumni were involved in supporting these students through the process. So I invite you, too, to participate in New Challenge next year. Thank you.
Jolene Towers, Executive Dean of Parsons and New School of Design. Thank you.
Thanks. I don't speak to you today as Dean of Parsons, but rather as an architect and an urban designer. I figure that a New York minute or a New School minute may be the attention span of our culture. I'm not sure about that in the age of Twitter, but it may also be simply an opportunity to get you to remember one thing in my 1 minute and that is I'd like you to remember 400. I'd like you to go home and be able to remember this number. I'd like you to wake up in the morning remembering this number. I'd like when you go to dinner tonight to be thinking about this number. You may need some mnemonic device to do that. I leave that up to you. Please remember 400. It was the other lead story in today's New York Times. It's 400 parts per million. 400 parts per million of carbon in the atmosphere is the challenge we face today. I was in this room a week ago with one of our trustees, Beavis Longstreth, sitting on a panel about the appropriate investment of the new school's endowment, and to hear one of our trustees describe climate change as the race of their lives to the students sitting in this room made me additionally proud. I'm always proud to be at the new school, but incredibly proud to hear our trustees say we need to be responsibly investing our endowment in order to not continue to support fossil fuels. So why have I used the first 30 seconds to try to get you to remember 400? Because the last 30 seconds are what makes New School particularly well positioned to be able to address this challenge. The science is very well known. This is a social problem and a design problem. And that's what we do here at the New School. And I, for one, am not willing to accept a life for my children in the future that is constrained by the effects of human action. And I think that we can affect climate change positively, working together, and I know that many of my colleagues among the faculty and our students are committed to doing so, and if we follow our students, we'll be making the right decisions on this. So remember 400, remember the time this number happened, because it will be a critical point in your lives, and don't let it get to 450, because that's when it gets to be too high. So that's my minute. Remember 400.
Julia Folks, Associate Professor of History, whose lecture is entitled The History of the New School.
Looking backward reminds us that two of the school's founders were historians who crafted what was called, wait for it, the New History. This movement claimed that the past should serve the present, not be a timeless narrative of events long ago. It could be used to provide perspective on current concerns. So what use does our past in a place called the new serve us now? Today we have far more degree than non-degree students, a flock of tenured faculty, and more buildings that stake our claim in the village. As we become more conventional, I think we look to the past to understand ourselves as unconventional. We need to know that the school recognized before others that women and African Americans deserved a history of their own, that media was a new form of knowledge, and that it was here that John Cage taught not only a course on composition, but also one on mushrooms. If our investigation only confirms what we want to know, though, then we are not good students of either the new history or the new school. So let me make a claim for the uncomfortable in our past, as well as the unconventional, by noting the other word in our name. I think we should remain a school, even as we grow as a university, that we remain committed to understanding education as fundamental to life, not just a career, and to making thoughtful citizens of the world, not just alumni. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone, for the incredible opportunity to hear those insightful and short, but very, very interesting things, cross-discipline, just like the New School. Right now, the reception begins, so enjoy yourselves, and thank you.